It started with a whisper, but not a sound, not a voice you could hear with your ears. It was a feeling. A cold pressure building behind my eyes, a shiver that had nothing to do with the temperature, a weird tug deep in my gut. I was at this dusty old estate auction in upstate New York, just wandering around, sifting through crates of forgotten memories and yellowed paperbacks. I wasn't really looking for anything specific. I just wanted something different. Something with a story, that's when I saw it. Tucked away on a table, sitting by itself on a piece of faded velvet cloth, was this leather-bound book. It was thick, the kind of book that feels heavy with more than just pages. The leather was cracked with age, and there was no title on the spine, no markings on the cover at all. Just a single brass clasp holding it shut, tarnished and cold when I reached out to touch it. Even the auctioneer had no clue what it was. He just listed it as Lot 49, unknown book, possibly religious. I got it for $12. $12 for what would turn out to be the end of my life as I knew it. I didn't open it right away. For a few days, it just sat on my coffee table. There was something about it that felt wrong. It felt heavy in a way that had nothing to do with its weight, like it was resisting being opened, like it didn't want to be touched. But you know how it is. Curiosity is a powerful thing, a cruel master. Really? By midnight a few days later, I couldn't take it anymore. I was at my desk, the book sitting in the glow of my lamp. I undid the clasp. The pages were incredibly brittle, and they smelled like dust and something else, something metallic and faintly sweet. They were covered in handwritten script, but it was a language I'd never seen before. The symbols seemed to twist and squirm if I stared at them for too long. There were these bizarre diagrams of human anatomy, except they were all wrong. The heart was drawn with too many chambers. The eyes had tiny mouths sketched inside the pupils. It was deeply unsettling, and then I found it. Tucked between two pages that were stuck together was a single, separate sheet. This one was in English, and the ink was red. Not a faded, old-timey red ink. This was a fresh, vibrant, almost wet-looking red. It read, "To read is to bind is to bleed. Speak the name, and the curse shall feed." And right below that chilling little rhyme, there was a name, Marael. I laughed. It was a nervous, stupid sound that just sort of escaped me. To prove how silly it all was, I said the name out loud. Marael, and in that exact instant, every light in my apartment went out. At first, the strangeness was easy to dismiss. Small things. Shadows in the corner of my eye that seemed to move on their own. Whispers that sounded like they were coming from just outside my room, but when I'd check, there was nothing. My cat, Salem, who's usually the most chill animal on the planet, started hissing at empty corners of the apartment. I told myself I was just stressed. My imagination was running wild because I'd read that creepy page. Power of suggestion, right? But then the dream started. And it was the same dream every single night. I'd be in my bed, paralyzed, and a figure would be standing at the foot of it. It was tall, draped in what looked like black rotting cloth, but it had no face, just a smooth, pale, egg-like surface where its features should have been. And it was watching me. I could feel it watching. I could see its chest rising and falling as it breathed, even though it had no mouth, no nose. And every single morning, without fail, I woke up with a nosebleed. Things escalated about 3 days later. My neighbor, Mrs. Callahan, she was this sweet old lady, 82 years old, always brought me cookies and asked how I was doing. I found her on her porch. Her eyes were wide open, and her mouth was frozen in a silent scream. The paramedics said there were no signs of trauma, no obvious cause of death. They just didn't know, but as they were taking her away, something fell from her hand. It was a small, torn scrap of paper. On it, in what looked exactly like my handwriting, was a single word, Marael. I hadn't written it. I have no memory, absolutely zero memory of writing that note. That's when true panic set in. I had to get rid of the book. I took it out to the backyard, threw it in a metal trash can, doused it in lighter fluid, and lit a match. The flames roared, but the book, it just wouldn't burn. The leather blackened a little, but the pages inside were untouched, so I tried burying it. I dug a deep hole in the woods behind my apartment complex and threw it in. The next morning, it was sitting on my desk, not a speck of dirt on it. In a final, desperate act, I drove to the river and threw it in, watching it sink beneath the murky water. That night, I woke up because I felt something cold and damp in my bed. It was the book, and every single time I touched it, I felt a piece of myself just unravel. It's hard to explain. My reflection in the mirror started to lag, just a fraction of a second behind my actual movements. My own voice started to have this faint echo, even when I was totally alone. And the sounds got worse. Wet footsteps right behind me, even on carpeted floors. The sound of breathing coming from inside my closet. And worst of all, a faint, rhythmic scratching from beneath my floorboards at night. I stopped sleeping. I could barely eat. I was losing my mind, and I was losing myself. I was desperate. I went online, diving into the deepest, darkest corners of the internet. Occult forums, scanned pages of ancient grimoires, anything I could find. I even contacted a self-proclaimed demonologist in Queens who basically told me I was crazy and then blocked my number. Most people just laughed me off, but one person, an old man named Father Griggs, replied to my frantic email. He agreed to meet me. He was this frail old man, but his eyes were sharp. I showed him the book. He took one look at it, and all the color drained from his face. He gently pushed it back towards me with his fingertips. "This is not a book," he whispered, his voice trembling. "It's a prison. A prison for what?" I asked. He looked up at me, and his eyes were hollow, filled with a kind of ancient fear. For something that remembers being God, he told me the name Marael was the name of one of the forgotten? A being of immense power that was cast out before the beginning of time, its essence sealed away in ink and flesh and bound within that book. The book was its cage, but speaking its name, he explained, even just once, was like a key turning in the lock. It didn't break the cage, but it cracked it open just enough. "You didn't just read a curse," he said, his voice grim. "You invited it in. After that, I started losing time. Not like losing track of an hour. I mean, entire chunks of my day would just vanish. I'd de-blink and find myself in a part of town I didn't remember walking to. I'd de-look down and my hands would be stained with that same red ink from the book. I found voice memos on my phone that I never recorded, just long stretches of whispers in that guttural, horrible language that made my ears bleed and my head ache. The worst was when I woke up one night in the woods. I was completely naked, freezing, and surrounded by a circle of dead animals. Crows, squirrels, a deer. Their eyes were missing. My hands were covered in blood. And right there, in the center of that horrific circle, was the book. It was open. And on a new, blank page, my name was written in that same wet, red ink. I ran to Father Griggs, completely broken. I begged him to help me. He told me there was only one way, a final, dangerous ritual that might be able to seal Marael away for good. But it required a sacrifice, a life for a lock, he said, his expression grave. "It has to be your life," and without a second of hesitation, I agreed. Anything was better than this. We did the ritual in the ruins of an old, abandoned church. The only light came from flickering candles that cast long, dancing shadows on the stone walls. Father Griggs chanted in Latin, his voice echoing in the empty space. And I felt it. I felt Marael inside me. It was screaming, clawing, trying to fight its way out. It felt like my skin was blistering, like my eyes were bleeding, like my very bones were cracking under the pressure. It was an agony I can't describe. And then, just silence and darkness. I woke up in my own apartment. Sunlight was streaming through the window. The air was still and quiet. The book was gone from my desk. I felt light. I felt clean. For the first time in weeks, I felt like myself. I thought it was over. I thought I had one. I stumbled into the bathroom, exhausted but relieved, and I looked in the mirror. And it wasn't my reflection looking back at me. My face was there, but the expression wasn't mine. It was smiling, a wide, knowing, triumphant smile. It was Marael's smile, so you see, I'm not writing this to warn you. I'm writing this because I have to, because Marael is in control now. And the curse, it demands to be spread. Every time I tell this story, every time a new person hears it, it grows stronger. Every time someone reads the name, it feeds. And you did. You just read the name, didn't you? Marael, now it knows you're there. Now it's aware of you. There's no point in trying to run or hide because it's already behind you. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're still able to.